Have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if you just stopped trying to fix all your flaws and instead you poured all that energy into what you're already amazing at? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. We're talking about unlocking your own personal superpowers, your strengths, and how that can completely transform your work and your life. This quote right here from Marcus Buckingham, it's the perfect place to start because it just flips the whole script. See, we're not just talking about skills, things you happen to be good at. We're talking about the stuff that actually energizes you, the activities that make you feel powerful, engaged, alive. That's a huge difference. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we actually do this? Well, that's what this whole explainer is for. We're going on a little journey to figure that out. And you should know, this isn't just feel-good fluff. The research is crystal clear. Gallup found that people who use their strengths every single day are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. They're happier, they have more energy, and they get way more done. Okay, first things first. You can't really use a superpower if you don't know what it is, right? So our first step is all about discovery. It's about figuring out what those superpowers actually are. So let's get really clear on the definition. A true strength, it's got two parts. First, it's something that gets you fantastic results. But the second part is just as important. It has to invigorate you. It's that feeling when you're working on something and time just disappears. You're completely in the zone. That's what psychologists call a flow state, and it's basically a giant flashing neon sign pointing right at one of your core strengths. So how do we find these things? Well, it's kind of like a three-pronged attack. You start with self-reflection. Just ask yourself, when have I felt most alive, most successful? Then you've got to seek feedback. Talk to people you trust, because they often see the amazing things in us that we're completely blind to. And finally, you can use more formal tools, like the Clifton Strengths Assessment, to get a really objective snapshot. All right, so once you've got a handle on what your superpowers are, it's time for the really fun part, actually putting them to work. This is where everything starts to change. I want you to think about your day as being split between these two zones. You've got the weakness zone, that's all the stuff that feels like a total chore and just drains your battery. Then you've got the strength zone. That's where you feel energized, in flow. Now, the goal isn't to pretend the weakness zone doesn't exist. It's about intentionally redesigning your work. They call it task crafting, so you can spend as much time as humanly possible in your strength zone. And here are 4 really practical ways to start doing that. First, make sure your goals are actually aligned with your strengths. Let your strengths be your guide. Second, don't be afraid to talk to your manager about reshaping your role to play to what you do best. Third, raise your hand. Volunteer for the projects where you know you're going to shine. And finally, build tiny daily habits that let you practice those strengths over and over again. Now let's kick this up a notch. Because, look, using your strengths every day is great, but refining them, sharpening them, and amplifying them, that's how you make a truly massive impact. And here's something you have to remember. Your strengths are not set in stone. They're like muscles. You can make them stronger. You do that through deliberate practice, really honing your craft. You do it by always learning, whether that's reading or finding a mentor. And you do it by taking on those tough assignments that really stretch you. And this is where your impact really multiplies. When you start collaborating with other people based on strengths. Be open about what you're great at, and then actively find people whose strengths cover your weak spots. The classic visionary partnering with a super detail-oriented person. That's a powerhouse team. When you do this, you help build a culture where everybody is bringing their A game. But, and this is a big but, to do this well, you need some serious self-awareness. Which brings us to a really critical question, one that everybody on this journey has to grapple with. Can your greatest strength actually become your biggest weakness? And the answer, from all the experts, is a loud, clear, resounding yes. Absolutely. Any strength, if you overuse it or use it in the wrong context, can flip from being an asset to a major liability. Think about it. Someone whose strength is being decisive, if they overuse it, they can just seem reckless, making rushed decisions. Or what about a great analyst? Overdo it and they get stuck in analysis paralysis. The real key here is wisdom. It's knowing when to crank that strength up to 11 and, just as important, knowing when to dial it back. So all these pieces, discovery, application, refinement, they're all held together by one thing, a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your work. Let's look at the core philosophy here. This table just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? The old way, the traditional approach, is totally obsessed with fixing what's wrong with us. It treats strengths like they're fixed, and it pushes us to try to be good at everything. But the strengths-based approach, it's all about developing what's already great, knowing you can always get better, and teaming up with others to cover the gaps. It's a total paradigm shift. And this quote from Marilyn Vosavant just nails it. Success isn't about being this perfectly well-rounded person with zero flaws. It's about finding what is uniquely powerful about you and building on that. So I'm going to leave you with this one simple question. Forget about some grand 5-year plan for a second. Based on everything we just talked about, what is one strength, one thing that makes you feel strong, that gets you in the flow, that you can go out and deliberately use tomorrow? Because that's where this whole journey really begins.